Well, if anyone watches this that doesn't know Divine Comedy, I'm trying to sell them to you as best you can. You need to check out this band. Oh no, Neil is paying me. Man, oh, no, I don't Neil. Don't know Neil.
Definitely a learning experience. So the last 2 or 3 weeks in anticipation of this podcast, there's a lot of listening to Divine Comedy albums. So I think I have a good feel for all the albums. However, it's not clear in my mind which song is which on the album. So I think it's a good combination here because you're the expert with the detailed knowledge, and I can give the first sort of impressions. But,
the shoe will be under the foot when we do you two. So and just coming from this regarding our qualifications, like we're very much coming from this analysis as music fans and not as experts and music theory. I mean, you play guitar. I play the guitar, but like us calling ourselves musicians would be a bit like a fella playing five-a-side on a Thursday night. A footballer, like call himself a footballer, like so. Anyway, so how have we chosen to rank these albums? I am not happy with the ranking. We'll find out why, but you can explain what we came to.
So basically, we both listened. Well, I listened to the albums. You throughout your lifetime you've been listening to the albums, and we put them in rank order from, so there's 11 albums, 1 to 11, and then we just added up the ranking, each of our rankings. So if you rank something 2 and I rank something 2, that got 4, and then the lower the ranking, the better, basically. So we have a sum total of our rankings, and I suppose it's a sum total of one person who is a hardcore fan and one person who's coming at them from the first time. So.
Okay. So how about we start with the lowest album, or the album that rated the lowest on our rankings?
So are we going to do one at a time, or are we going to take the last? Okay, all right. So number 11 was Foreverland. I ranked this as my 11. You ranked it as your number 10.
No, I think it's the other way around. I ranked
that's
ranked
right.
it as my 11.
Yeah.
And you ranked it as your number 10.
Oh, yeah, my number 10. Yeah. Okay, grand. Yeah.
I'm very disappointed with your number 11 anyway, but we'll get to that. Yeah, so for me anyway, I'll talk about Foreverland. Like, there's no doubt about it that this Foreverland was, a very well made album. It's a very enjoyable album. For me, it's like a 7 out of 10 album. It's definitely not a bad album. That's one of the best things about Divine Comedy, is that they're so prolific and so consistent in the quality of their output. But there's something about it that it obviously it's an album that means a lot to Neil, as it's a lot of it's very much an album about being in love, and a lot of the songs are dedicated to Cathy Davey, who is his wife now, I think, and who herself is actually a fine musician and a beautiful singer in her own right, and she does appear on one of the songs, Funny Peculiar, here. But I just think that there's only really one song from this album that really blows me away. Like, the rest of the songs are good, but the only one that blows me away would be To the Rescue, which is a song where Neil it's like a tribute to Cathy for all the work that she does for animal rescue. I think she has the charity called My Lovely Horse Charity, and she does a lot of work for that, and it's his tribute to it, and it's a beautiful song, lovely melody, heartfelt lyrics. I'm more proud of you than you could ever know. Just very simple, very straight to the point lyrics, but they work for the song. And then there's a beautiful horn and trumpet solo towards the end of the song, which is accompanied by the soaring strings, which is just divine. But what about you? What's your take on it?
Definitely To the Rescue is a highlight for me. And I think one thing that captures what I like and what I don't like about Divine Comedy is in Foreverland. Like, so To the Rescue, definitely the like that sort of soaring type of melody, and it has the song, and then at the end it has this like crescendo and really sort of reaches a peak. That's great. So yeah, it really works really well. One that I don't like so much would be Funny Peculiar, which is like a little bit. It's like it's a nice love song. Well, I presume it's a love song, but it's a nice sort of. It's a bit too happy. Yeah, it's a bit too happy.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with that kind of happy stuff. I mean, there is an aspect to this album where those people who are just who are newly in love and they're just flaunting it in your face all the time.
Yeah.
Like they're like so many
Maybe
of these songs
I'm
are
too much of a
like
cynic. Maybe that's the problem.
Yeah,
it's all
too much of a
with me.
cynic. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but like, there's a lyric I really like that where I think it's in Funny Peculiar where funny, like a minor chord. There isn't a reason for it. They just throw it in there. Like it's Funny Peculiar. I don't know. There's little lyrics, little touches. I think the lyrics are still very good in this album. Like even in Catherine the Great. She looks so bloody good in the horse. They couldn't wait for her to invade. And actually, that song itself is. And then there's lyrics from the Pact where he compares, the commitment of a relationship to the commitment of two sovereign nations coming together to have each other's back. And it sounds like this could never work on paper, but he makes it work. So there are some great lyrics. I will say, and we can go into our highlights after this, is that. Sometimes the production feels a little bit thin. There's a lot of banjo stuff here, especially in that song "My Happy Place," that just doesn't really do it for me. And even in the song like Napoleon Complex, which starts off with a bang, great little very interesting percussion going on, percussion work going on until it goes into the verse. But then it has a really kind of underwhelming chorus like Napoleon Complex, when the banjo comes in, and things like that, they just don't quite grab me. And then the last thing I'll say is the song Foreverland. It sounds a little bit like track 3 from CD2 of your third class religion kind of live-o program, where it's like, what did he come here for? He came to spread the good news. What did he come here for? To tell us he loves you. His name is Jesus. You know what I mean? So there's even though it's really elegantly made, I'm not I'm doing the song at this service. It's a very pretty song, but it just kind of reminds me of that. But yeah. So I think very well made album. Certainly, lyrically very strong. And To the Rescue is a highlight for me. I do like I'm a Desperate Man, which is a kind of much more livelier track. I like Catherine the Great. I like The Pact. I think The Pact is a very, very pretty song. But I go on. Highlights and lowlights.
No, I was just thinking that when you said that the production values, I always find when I go to the chronology, he sort of peaks in the middle where you have a lot of backing from a lot of the record companies. So you have like Absent Friends, Regeneration. They seem to be really well produced, and then it comes back, like it dips a little bit with Bang Goes the Night. And I didn't find that as much here with Foreverland, but it's interesting that you say that. Maybe that trend has continued a little bit relative to maybe those, but
I'd agree with you. Although I know you think. Well, we'll talk about the other album in a moment, but yeah, I think it's the only album that it's sort of glaring to me. I think the other albums, I've never really noticed it like that much. So
yeah. I think I've mentioned my highlights and all that. My highlight is definitely To the Rescue, and then
lowlights, of course, Funny Peculiar.
Yeah, and then like Napoleon Complex, I didn't mind it, but it is a bit repetitive. Definitely, the hook is not. He's done better, definitely.
Yeah. I do the How Can You Leave Me by My Own. I think there's pretty funny lyrics on that as well. Like about, I think it's basically about Cathy going off doing her her so much work for the animal charity that he's at home just being a bum,
Right.
and it's very self-deprecating but funny lyrics. Yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
are we ready to move on from Foreverland?
I think so. Yeah. Okay. So that was number 11. Number 10 then is Bang Goes the Knighthood. That was my number 11, but it was your number 7. And the question to me is, why is to me it seems it feels clearly the weakest to me, but why is it not so weak in your opinion?
Oh my god! I just think that the songs are really strong. I just think there's so many strong songs, and Bang Goes the Knighthood. It was in 2010 in the middle when the world was going to shit. But I think with Neil, he was just after meeting Cathy Davey. He was in love. The world was going to shit, but there is a certain. like I know why some Divine Comedy fans aren't a big fan of it, because like there's not really kind of, there's a split between the Divine Comedy fans, where some kind of like the more kind of poppy, jingoistic kind of Divine Comedy, almost the fun, fluffy Divine Comedy, while others prefer them when he's being a bit more serious, being a bit more moody and deep, and that it may be a little bit more melancholic even, and it's not really a very melancholic album, but I just think there's some absolutely cracking songs. The Lost Art of Conversation, really funny song, a really like a lively song. I love the lyric about we had a brave comrade, and then he tried to be a hero by talking. I can't remember the lyric, but it's by talking to commuters wearing earphones. It's just sort of a reflection on how us in society, we've lost the art of conversation. That everybody is just going around. This is back in 2010. Like I say, it was way worse now, and I'm as guilty of it as anyone. But it's just people don't talk to strangers anymore. You just you're on the train and you're wearing earphones, and it's just a funny way to do it. It's like it won't be long till the men in white coats come and take you away, like, just because it's almost seen as crazy to talk to someone, but look, Down in the Street Below, an absolutely beautiful song. I think it's one of your favorite songs. I think Bang Goes the Knighthood is a great song. Have You Ever Been in Love? Like there's a kind of this is very much like there's a musical element to some of these songs where I really do feel like they would fit in a kind of sort of a 1950s style musical, that and where the arrangement, like by Andrews, and I think Andrew Skeet helped out with a lot of the string arrangements there, like for songs like Have You Ever Been in Love, when it breaks into the kind of the string section, and the same thing with Island Life, which was initially supposed to be written for a musical. Just a beautiful string sections. When a Man Cries is probably the one song that maybe sort of harkens back to our mutual friend, not our mutual friend, but the more serious and deep side of Neil Hannon. Like, but yeah, brilliant stuff.
Yeah, like I remember this is one of the few albums actually I bought. So I bought Bang Goes the Knighthood, I had Absent Friends, and I had the Greatest Hits, and I remember when I put this on and I got Down in the Street Below and said, yes, this is the sort of stuff I really liked. It great. It's sort of an emotional song that you can sort of buy into. You like the way he describes and paints the picture of the scene. You can relate, like you can really see it happening, and it's very, very well told. And I really like you have this introduction part, which is a bit like very, I don't know, very moving, and then it gets a bit more upbeat, and it reminds me a bit of A Day in the Life, like where you have two different ideas and they stitch them together, and then it works really well as a whole. I think it's a bit like that. It's a bit like he had two ideas and he just sort of banged them together, and it sounded good. But then after that, it sort of went downhill. There was nothing really that did it for me after that. I do like At the Indie Disco, and I know but one thing as well, for when I listen to At the Indie Disco, I like it as a good. I think it's it's like a well finessed type pop song when you get the little hook and everything like that fits in nicely. But there's not much going on there. It's just him on a guitar really, and there's a few other bits afterwards. But it feels like it's definitely, you can see that he's not with the major record label anymore. The production values, it feels like he's sort of doing it by himself, and he's sort of in charge. And like, he's not bad, but he's not a full-time producer, and that sort of comes across a little bit in it. But I do like the song though.
Yeah, I always thought that song, it's just, I don't like, Neil, when I don't like it when songs are when the chord progressions are just so basic, like that you could write it yourself on like a guitar, like where it's just bum 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 bum, like bum bum bum.
Yeah,
and for me, it's actually the little extra flourishes in the arrangements that actually make that song work really well. And I think the lyrics are really nostalgic and really relatable lyrics. That whole thing about going to I wouldn't have went to indie discos, but that whole thing of when you're younger going to a disco and talking about singing your favorite song with the girl, or wondering if I wonder if she fancies me. It's just also it brings it all back, and he's very good at he's actually very good at evoking nostalgia in people, I think.
Yeah, and it's one of the songs where I actually I get the jokes and I find them funny, where sometimes he makes jokes and it doesn't land for me, whereas But then again, like it's all the sort of music references that are sort of I find funny. But some other
As an
people,
indie kid yourself, like probably more so than me.
but yeah, well, like he references bands that I like. But
There is, and also I think there's one song I know I might look at. I'm not going to lie; it's probably going to be my top 10. Here, Neapolitan Girl, where I think it's actually just this juxtaposition of really kind of almost happy, cheerful, happy-go-lucky type of music in the background, but the lyrics are really, really dark, and he tells a really I suppose I wouldn't say dark, maybe not dark, but he tells a story of a prostitute in Naples and how she was living her life, and he does it. He's very good at this kind of telling stories, but doing so in a way he's not telling you how to think about it. As in he's not
just presenting this situation.
Yeah. Now he does. For example, in The Complete Banker, he definitely does kind of. There's no ambiguity about his feelings about bankers in that thing. He'd probably think you're a bit of a complete ranker for the weight and ranking you're giving him at the bottom of the pile, like here. But only Neil would appreciate that joke. But for ranking it so low. But but then again, in Bang Goes the Knighthood, he's that kind of banker character sort of appears again, where he tells the story of a fella that's getting involved in a sex scandal, and I think it was actually inspired by Max Mosley, the Formula One.
Yeah.
And he tells that story about he just threw it all away by getting involved in this sex scandal. It's how is it that people with so much power and privilege could just that they can't resist, Anyway, look, I didn't articulate that very well, but I will talk about Neapolitan Girl later on, because it is one I think one of the highlights of Divine Comedy's career.
I'm just looking at the track list here, and in the iTunes bonus disc, there's Napoleon Complex. So I wonder, was that written in that time?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, there's a version now. I haven't really listened to that version that much. For me, the best B-sides and bonus tracks are from the Victory for the Comic Muse era. There's some brilliant ones there. We would get talking to them about that later on. So quickly, highlights and lowlights.
So I sort of covered my highlights. Down in the Street Below is definitely a highlight. I think it's that emotional type of song that he does really well. So that
and a great message as well, where it's that feeling of, I think it's inspired by when he had a girlfriend. And he likes spending time with her, but he's like always a pleasure but never a chore, but you wonder if you're doing it for the right reasons, where he's in a relationship where he liked the girl, but he
wasn't sure it was a long-term thing.
It's kind of, and there's the overall message of the song as well is about kind of not really being sure, are you really doing what you want to be doing, kind of thing. And I think that's the place he was in. I
can't point to a particular highlight, but definitely all the other songs just felt grand to me. There was nothing that stuck out for me, and they felt more skippable than others, essentially. But that was only my broad brush sort of sense from it. What's your highlights and lowlights?
Yeah, well, Down in the Street Below is a cracking song. Neapolitan Girl is obviously a big highlight. I really like The Lost Art of Conversation. Island Life, one of the most underrated Divine Comedy songs. When a Man Cries, beautiful song. So there's a lot of highlights. There's no real lowlights for me. I wouldn't say I'm crazy about the indie disco, but I can enjoy it. I can get with it. Complete Banker, not crazy about it either, but I still think I think he makes his point well enough. I can't really disagree with what he's saying. So, I'm disappointed with your assessment or evaluation of this album, but because I really like it. I don't think it's one of the Divine Comedy's best ever, but I think it's been harshly treated in this way.
Okay, funny because the last two I feel are definitely low, but then the next sort of 3 or 4 for me are all around the same level. So, anyways, number 9 is a short album about love, and we both ranked it at 9, which is interesting. Why are we down at number 9? Shane, you're the. Why have you got it down at number 9?
I think this is a great album. I actually. It's funny, he wrote this album. I think this album should be called the short album about neediness, because the characters he is portraying. Because back then it was almost every song was performed through the lens of a character, like her. So that there's a lot of very needy songs in this. Put it that way. Everybody knows that I love you. It's just kind of, you know, I told my mum and dad. They seem to understand. What's that line? I made a small boy cry.
Oh yeah.
What was the line before? I can't remember. But it's just a funny thing is that
I told the passersby.
I made a small boy cry.
It's funny when I'm reminding you of Divine Comedy lyrics.
Yeah, you're reminding me. Impressive. You've definitely been doing your homework. But what I would say about this is like from here on in, like my bottom two are kind of the two that I think from my 9 on anyway, and we haven't heard what my number 10 is like, but Foreverland, and we'll hear my number 10 soon enough, are to me are just good albums, but I wouldn't be massive fans of it. But I really, really, really like this album. It's just that I love nearly all their albums. So
something has to come down.
Something has to come down. And one of the reasons why it's down low is because it's just shorter. It's too short. And there's one song that is basically a retake of a song that was on Liberation called Time Watching, and I do prefer this version. I think it's much richer and benefits from the full orchestra treatment. But in Pursuit of Happiness, great song. Like, just love the way the orchestra just builds and builds and builds and builds to this big massive crescendo at the end. I think that's Divine Comedy at their best. Really great. I think it was Joby Tolby that was deserves a lot of credit for a lot of that kind of arrangement. Although Hannon did arrange all of Promenade and Liberation and I think most of Casanova, so himself, but Talbot obviously had a big say in, you know, Fin de Siècle and A Short Album About Love. Everybody knows except you. Love that. Someone, great lyrics about someone once like me told someone like you, love is just a word, where it's almost like it's a great album to follow Casanova, which was all about this kind of almost misogynistic, chauvinistic, misanthropic, nihilistic kind of character. Where this fella has moved on. Like we're hearing a song where I never used to believe in love, and you're making me believe in love now. And yeah, I think. Look, I'll let you speak because I'm obviously when you two are on, you'll be doing most of the speaking. I'm sure I'll have very little to say except criticism. I'm only joking.
Okay, where did I? So this is one I enjoy. Like I definitely think when you get into these albums now, I find there's a huge step up from the previous 2 albums. So I definitely enjoyed this a lot more than the other 2. Time Watching is one of my favorite songs of all the Divine Comedy songs, but I sort of like to attribute that to Liberation. I feel like I don't want to double count, so I'm not really counting it here as much, but although it does get some credit, I suppose, for being on here, and as you said, like, it's a different production, so it probably is a bit better. Everybody knows, like, one thing as well, when I was listening back through some of the songs, and the songs I was familiar with, the singles, I enjoyed them more this time round, and sometimes there's bits I caught that I didn't catch before, so that was a surprise to me. And some songs as well, I don't know, was it like there were single edits, or was it something? Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. But it felt like there was more substance at the end, and then like they had that kick. Like, I would go into them when you come on to the different songs, but it had that sort of, you know, crescendo at the end where it builds up and it just sort of reaches the climax.
Like, that's when he's like, I'm going crazy, baby. Ba, ba. Yeah.
But like, I didn't find that in Everybody Knows.
No,
I don't know. I just didn't do it for me as much. So that's not what is, like, I do like some of his singles. That's not one of my favorites. Someone I really enjoyed though. I think that was really strong. And If it's just all right. But one thing I will say about my experience listening to the songs in the last while, the more I listen to them, the more I start to enjoy them. So this one is one, maybe if I listen to it more, I would enjoy it a bit more. But my current ranking is that there's a few songs here that I like, but it just doesn't have the same level of the others.
Fair enough. I think all the songs are like, I think I'm All You Need, the final track of this album, I just absolutely love it. Another, it's just when Divine building it up, and really strong climax with the strings and the trumpets pumping out the melody like it's. But I will say before we move on, I love how much I love the lyrics of If. And I will also make a point about the album is that when the way that it portrays love, it's almost from the perspective of a very naive, self-absorbed young person's perspective, where they don't really understand love. It's all about how the other person, all the songs are about how the other person makes them feel and what they can do for them. It's all about me. It's like, it's not really. And I think, if you look at a lot of the songs that Hannon wrote in his later years, it's much more about how great the other person is and how much they respect him, and how you like to the rescue. I'm more proud of you than you can ever know. Well, this one is all about what you can do for me. Is that Hannon?
Is he Hannon? Is he playing a character here, or is it?
Yeah, I think he's vocally said he can never find it totally. He finds it very hard ever to be truly, fully sincere, and so I think it's kind of a thing where he is in character, but the character is someone that is living somewhere inside him, like it's coming from inside him, but it's just he just uses the vehicle of the character to just exaggerate a point. And before we move on to this, I do want to draw the attention to some of the lyrics of If. I just love that juxtaposition of all this really beautiful, sweet, romantic orchestration in the background, and a really sweet, simple underlying melody on the piano, but as it starts off, it's kind of just awkward phrasings about how you love somebody and what you would do for them, but it just gets more and more psychotic, and it's just such a funny juxtaposition as the music becomes more and more romantic and the lyrics become more and more psychotic. There's a lyric of if your name was there's a lyric with
table. Yeah.
If you were my sister, if you were my girl, I'd find it hard to let you go. If you were my sister, I'd find it doubly so. Like, it's just so messed up. And there's another one about if you were a horse, I'd clean the crap out of your table and never once complain. If you were a dog, I'd feed you scraps from under the table, even though my wife complains. Like, it's kind of like this notion, and then finally it's like the end just finally kind of the twist at the end is like the music finally catches up with the lyrics about how psychotic this character is, where you'll be my loyal four-legged friends, you wouldn't have to think again, and we can be together till the end. So it's all about it's really all about obsession, and
okay,
I think it's really well done.
That one completely over my head. Okay,
you gotta listen to it again.
Might be
I had to make that point, because that's one of the reasons why I love that song. If I just think it's funny and just very clever. Yeah,
might be rechanging my ranking. Okay, number 8 then is Liberation, and for me it was 7, and for you it was 10.
Yeah,
which is okay. Now for me, Liberation, like I could put it, it's round between 7 and 9 is where I like, all these are very similar for me, but for you, for 10, as a hardcore Divine Comedy fan, it seems low to me, but
well, I think that's a reasonable concern, I suppose. It's not really a concern, but it's a reasonable question to pose, because generally speaking, most Divine Comedy fans, especially the old fans, are very precious about the early albums like Liberation and Promenade together.
I think it's a general thing, like with musicians. It's like, this is at their purest. This is where they're like.
We liked them before they were cool, we liked them when they were actually good. It's like, they're the Kings of Leon, and there was a lot of fans were like that. Like, when they put out Sex and Fire and everyone else loved them, they're like, oh, fuck that,
Well, there is some bands. Kings of Leon are one, definitely. Like,
maybe they have a point. Maybe they're right, because I wasn't aware. I was never a big Kings of Leon fan anyway. But
they did change it. No, definitely. Like, well, Kings of Leon definitely feels like they changed a lot. But then you look at other bands like Muse as well. I would have that feeling that their early albums were better. But
what Muse fans are actually arguing that the new stuff is better.
I don't think there's anyone who argues that it's better. No, that's true. I don't know.
Because it's not like Muse were probably at their biggest when they were great. Now I think they'd have some later albums that are really good. I think the Second Law is a cracking album. Like, but anyway, this isn't about Muse. But,
yeah.
But
Maybe we'll set that for now.
they're actually Muse are big fans of Divine Comedy, by the way, especially the drummer Dom Howard. So
all right,
yeah. But anyway,
okay, so Liberation. It's funny, like when I think about the trajectory of Divine Comedy, it's they're definitely one of these, like, something that would happen in the 80s and 90s, but you won't get away with now, is that they definitely gathered speed as they went along, and I feel like from Casanova on, they really are in their stride, whereas now they weren't poor before that, but other bands, you have to hit the ground running nowadays, and they had that freedom to move, and like I was looking up, but their record deal, like they were with whatever Satanta, an indie record label. There wasn't too many bands on that label, and they had that sort of indie, like an indie record label is able to take the gamble on, you know, a punt like Divine Comedy. You don't really get that nowadays.
Yeah,
so it's interesting.
Well, I think, and in fact, the only reason that Satanta actually got a bit of money because of Edmund Collins. You know, Edmund Collins, and I never met a girl like you before.
All right, okay, yeah.
So that was a big, massive hit, and he was
song.
on their label, and basically then they got a bit of money, so didn't know what to do. It says, well, we'll just we'll throw it to Neil, and then Neil, obviously, that's how he got access to all this. The orchestra and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of those albums might not have been able to be made, except for that Edmund Collins hit, and obviously the orchestral sound is so key to, you know, for most of what Divine Comedy have produced. So so that's a funny one. But you're making the point that about the early album Liberation. What is it then? Because you have it reasonably high. I mean,
I enjoyed the songs. So the likes of Europop, Your Daddy's Car, Time Watching is one of my favorite of all the Divine Comedy songs. I think it's
interesting.
Excellent. Yeah, I liked those songs, but then there's like the other songs that I didn't like. They just don't do it to the same way for me. So the likes of Bernice Bobs Her Hair, I just didn't enjoy that as much at all.
Too fluffy. That's based on a Matt Scott Fitzgerald book, I think.
I didn't get that, and I learned that afterwards, but I didn't get that. When I was listening to it, I was just taking it at face value, and it just thought, not really great. Pop Singer's Fear of the Pollen Count. As far as that was a single, I think, but it just doesn't do it to the same way for me.
Yeah. Look, I can relate. Obviously, it's my number 10, and like there's times when I probably would have Foreverland over it, but I do think the songwriting is strong. Like, I do love the lyrics of Your Daddy's Car. You know, can you feel the sadness in our love? It's the only kind we're worthy of. Just a very thought-provoking lyric, and then even just where he sort of explores the kind of that how you can get so high that it can bring you down, like, you know, this sort of, we took your daddy's car, we rolled into town or whatever, and it's in the first few verses it describes young people being free and happy and that, and then the last verse is got very dark. We took your daddy's car, we wrapped it around the tree, we didn't know what for, we didn't feel like driving anymore. It's just kind of this, there's a really thought-provoking dark or undercurrent to that song, dark ending that gets me every time. I just think the songwriting is strong, but I just, because he doesn't really have access to, and I do think there's some great cello and violin work, but like I've often found in albums like this, and then some of the early albums as well, is that there's no real. I like creative bass work, and the bass work is just very simplistic. You don't really notice it.
Did you get flashes of his experimentation, like Europop and Europe by Train? Like, he is
Europe by Train. I love Europe
really,
by Train.
Like, it's very experimental, and like he really goes into that in later albums. But it's interesting to see that he's doing that from the get go, like straight out the gate. But
well, there's no doubt about it. There's the creativity is there in this album, and he's definitely, like, he made an initial album, Fanfare of the Comic Muse. That was his first album, and we're not even going to record it because he himself has disowned it. And I think, even with the start of Festive Road, which is about Mr. Ben, a cartoon character who
used to try on different outfits, whatever, and sort of go into a new world. I don't know much about Mr. Ben. I've never seen it, but the idea, I think he just sets out a stall. This is going to be I'm going to do it my way here. And this is going to be my style. The trademark harpsichord sound is introduced in this album and features very prominently in it, and works very well. And yeah, it's, as I say, creativity's there. It's a lot of, it's a few songs there. I don't really like I Was Born Yesterday. I could easily skip that. Not crazy about the Pop Singers, Fear of the Pollen Count. I guess it's catchy enough. I can listen to it. I can enjoy it in some days, but it's not the Divine Comedy style that I like the best. The highlights and lowlights, Jenny, before we move on?
So definitely Time Watching is the highlight. It's great. It's really, and like, it's all the lush strings are great, but also you can sense the you can see where, I know like his father was a bishop, so you can see where he's obviously grown up in a house where there's a lot of church music there, and that influence is very strong, and the different sort of chord progressions and cadences, like you don't hear it in pop music, but you hear it in sort of classical music and sort of that sort of choral music, and he brings it in here really, really, really well. Like, it's something that you wouldn't normally hear on this sort of album, so I really like that. And one thing it's not necessarily it's more me when my listening experience more so on the album, but like as you're saying, like you have the harpsichord, all these other sounds that sound a bit harsh the first time you hear them, and it takes a bit of getting used to. And I was listening to it, and that was distracting me a lot, and I was trying to get used to all that. And it just didn't sit as well as maybe it did when I was listening to the other albums. Now maybe it's because I was more familiar with it, but definitely I feel like he gets into his stride a bit more later on. But
I'd actually agree with that. That he definitely is still kind of finding his feet with this album. Highlights for me would be Your Daddy's Car, as we've already mentioned. I'm very fond of Victoria Falls. I think that's a really underrated Divine Comedy track, which just I like those tracks where it kind of just gets locked in. The swirling acoustic guitar, the drums are really distinctive in it, and it kind of gets locked in a groove, which I really like. That I really vibe with. But A Death of a Supernaturalist, I think, is a cracking song. A lot of these songs are, Neil was very much a very literary kid, and you can tell that with the influences, like even just synopsizing a F. Scott Fitzgerald story, you can tell, like, some of the lyrics I find in this album a bit impenetrable, and it's which we don't have time to get into now, like, but you can tell that he's definitely very much influenced by certain writers. He was one of his biggest influences was Ian Forster. He's been very vocal about how, Ian Forster just changed his total perception of what's possible artistically. And yeah, Lucy's another great song, one of the Divine Comedy favourites, and Three Sisters as well. Yeah. So lowlights for me, I'll just tell you, I Was Born Yesterday, and that's the only low light.
Right, okay. Grand. Okay, so that was number 8.
Is this the next one, the last one we're doing before we have a break?
Yes, so last one before break. Okay, right. Okay. So this is 7th, Victory for the Comic Muse. My number 5 and your number 6.
Was it my number 6? Yeah. Oh yeah, probably was. Jeez. This is a great album.
Yeah, we're getting into the business end of things now, so it's yeah, like, definitely for me, it has more songs that I'd been planning to put on. Like, this is, for me, when I was thinking about ranking, it was a case of where did it work as an album as a whole, and then where do the highlights are the songs that I would actually put on and enjoy, and like out of choice as opposed to just if I was flicking through. And definitely this is the first where there's a lot of songs that I really enjoy, like I really would put on. Like Lady of a Certain Age was one of my favourite Divine Comedy songs before I ever came to do this sort of review. I think it's really good. Then songs like okay, you're getting into the hits, but To Die a Virgin and Diva Lady, they're the sort of pop songs, but I enjoy, like, they're good. They're getting better. Yeah, they're catchy. Yeah, I think when it hits home for me in terms of I like it as opposed to maybe some of them where it just doesn't do it for me. But what would be your
Verdict?
General opinion, yeah.
Yeah, I just think it's a brilliant album. It's probably the most scattershot. A lot of his albums, there's certainly much more of a kind of umbrellaed theme to a lot of the albums. While with this one, there's just songs about all sorts of topics. Like one, the first song, "To Die a Virgin," is about, he's reimagining what it was like being a teenage boy, where you're like so desperate to lose your virginity. In a way, in almost a very creepy, way that wouldn't fit very well now in the current age. But I think it's all in good fun. Like from he's taking the piss, of the character that he's narrating from. But then you have it's just scattershot. Stylistically, there's so much. There's so much variety in this album, which for some probably means that that. I think I've heard some complaints where I like some of the songs, but some of the songs I don't like, and that's what brings it down. I pretty much like all the songs, and I love some of the songs. Some of the songs I think are some of the best Divine Comedy songs of the career. And this album, like as you mentioned, "A Lady of a Certain Age," lyrically just such a special song. I love that part about. Where it sort of he recounts the story of kind of a woman who is well-to-do and who was in her younger years living the high life with the upper class, well-to-do rich people, and that basically that her life kind of went all downhill from there, from the point of view of status, wealth, and probably self-esteem, all that kind of stuff. And I love the line, your son's in stocks and bonds, lives back in Surrey, flies by once in a while, leaves in a hurry. Your daughter never finished her finishing school, married a strange young man of whom you can't approve. It's just so you can just imagine it, you can see it. He tells the story so well. He's such a brilliant storyteller, and this is one of the best examples of it.
Definitely. No, I 100% agree. One thing I find it like a lot of his songwriting it's like he's telling a story, and I think that could be a high risk strategy, because you either get it or you don't. Whereas with other bands, you might just have a broad appeal, like a general love story that anybody can sort of hook on to some aspect of it and interpret it in their own context. Whereas here, if you're very specific, it's very hard for everybody to actually get it. But with this one, I think he does it well. Like, he tells a story people can sort of, everybody can find something in it and understand, oh yeah, there's somebody like that. Or now at the same time, it feels like he's a bit cynical about it, or it's hard to know what way, what the tone is. It's a
bit of a Mona Lisa vibe to the tone of his delivery. Yeah,
is he sympathetic or is he cynical? It's hard to know.
Yeah, but I think that's the beauty. The beauty of it is that you can't really tell whether he's been sympathetic or he's taking the piss out of her. Like, I'm inclined to think that he's been fairly sympathetic and he's telling us so, but it's hard to know. It is hard to know. That's the beauty of it. "To Die a Virgin," I think as well, like some of the lyrics are a little bit cringe about, found a magazine of his brother, read it under the covers, this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But it's funny. I think it's fun. I think it's, and it's musically just so catchy, and bills and bills. That's when you love Divine Comedy. Bills, bills, bills at the end with the trumpet section.
Yeah.
I just think it's great. "Diva Lady" is actually a song that is kind of one of the most disliked singles from amongst the Divine Comedy fan base, but I think I actually like it. It's not lyrically his most adventurous or insightful.
It's definitely a song that I wouldn't have put it on beforehand, but listening through, I enjoyed it when I was listening to it. So it definitely would rank it higher than a lot of songs.
Yeah. Another thing to note about this album is that he was going through the breakup with his first wife, Orla Little, of which she had a child. I think her name was Willow. And there are a few songs that I think one of the songs, "The Light of Day," which is sort of a little hidden gem in the back catalogue of Divine Comedy, is that it's a very, very pretty song with very nostalgic and very
trying to be hopeful despite, you know, what's going on. Like, it's kind of, you know, it starts, I found a photograph of you and me drinking sangria somewhere by the sea. But then it's like, when there's no more lies to hide behind and no more tears to cry, I know it'll be all right. There's just a hopeful message behind it, but it's also, there's this, there's a tinge of sadness there that it still permeates through the song, like, and it's really good.
Yeah, and one thing as well, he won the Choice Music Award, I think, for this. Was it?
Yeah, I've read that. Yeah, like,
And
I don't remember at the time, but
I remember hearing about it, and he's asked, you get money, he's asked what you're going to do with the money, and he said he's going to buy a kitchen. So, like, it's like, you're an artist and you're getting a prize, and he just does something very ordinary, like he buys a kitchen. But
yeah, but I'm actually happy to hear that he got the award, because I've always found him to be such an undervalued artist in Ireland as well. I don't think about it is, he's not, like, he's from Northern Ireland, from Enniskillen, but he seems to kind of be much more taken with the UK. He doesn't seem to have much of a connection with the Republic of Ireland, like a cultural connection with the Republic. It's not just the cultural connection he has with the Republic of Ireland certainly doesn't come through his music and his lyrics, like, where he's a bit of a francophile, he's a bit of an anglophile. You can see all that through so many of his songs, like. Not that I take that away from him.
We just drift into politics here very easily.
Oh yeah. I don't mean that as a bad thing. You know,
no,
like,
of course,
you know, like,
of course, I know. But
after all, he's Church of England. His dad was a bishop from Church of England. I don't think that's a bad thing at all.
No,
my point was that he's not really valued here because we can't, Irish people from the Republic of Ireland, and our culture maybe can't relate to his.
But he grew up in a different environment.
Oh, he did, and he does. He has addressed, you know, like, growing up in the war-torn Northern Ireland, in one of his songs in an album we'll deal with.
But he lives in Dublin now, doesn't he? Or he lives in Kildare?
I think he lives in Kildare. Yeah, he lives in Kildare. Yeah, so yeah. Okay, I'm full of nonsense. Highlights or lowlights from you? There's 3 songs I want to get to here as well.
Okay,
so I'll let you go.
I don't know if I have any lowlights to point out. Yeah, Lady of a Certain Age is definitely the highlight. That's a top song of all the Divine Comedy songs. I don't really have a lowlight to point out. How about yourself? What you want to get a few songs there?
Yeah, so I'll start off with the lowlights. I'll say that, like, I like all the songs here, like, but I'd say Mother Dear is a slight lowlight, where it's a very pretty song and it's a very heartfelt song. I like the song about, you know, if I ever get caught taken for a Russian spy by the CIA, all they have to do is make me look into my mother's eyes, and I'll, you know, like, anyway, look at it. Unless you know the song, I'm absolutely butchering the context there, but it's, as melodically, it's just a bit too basic. It's kind of like those country and western songs where you hear the first line of the song and you know exactly what the rest of the melody of the whole song is, almost, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't like when he varies into that territory, but it's one of those songs where I do like the actual banjo in, and it's still a strong song. Party Fears 2 is the only cover he's ever had in any of his albums. I think it's from the Associates, and while it's fine, it's good. I think if you're going to do a cover, it better be something classic, you know, like, if you want to do a cover, like, it's actually still probably the weakest song on the album, and it's the cover. So but I want to mention the 3 last songs. I think the Plough, Count Grassie's Passage over Piedmont, and Snowball and Negative, I think these are 3 of the strongest songs they've ever had. The Plough, just again, brilliant storytelling of the character who tries to fit in different cultural contexts, you know, and amongst different groups, where, you know, he's trying to, you know, he goes into an office as an accountant's office as an office clerk, but he doesn't like the culture there. He noticed that the people there are massaging the figures for personal gain. Like, he just didn't like the kind of dog-eat-dog culture there. He tried religion out, try as I might, I could no longer understand how the Almighty's all-merciful hand could cast away those whose only mistake was to never know the Christian faith. You know, just, and then he says, do you know what? Maybe I'll go with the rebels now up in the hills. You know, and then he realizes that they tell him to go to the he crept into town with a knife in my teeth and entered the home of the chief of police to raised up my blade. And I raised up my blade, and then I looked to the cop where his little one laid, and you murder tomorrow by killing today. And it's all about, he's desperate for connection, he's desperate to fit into a cultural context, but he keeps on saying, I'll plough my own furrow, I'll go my own way, but he's always going on to a new so that, I just think, and it's brilliantly arranged. The chords are brilliantly arranged, like especially the climax at the end where the violins go crazy. Just brilliant climax. Count Grassie's Passage Over Piedmont, one of the most beautiful. It's almost like it's just incredible. It just puts you into a trance. It's like fantasy where it's about them going in a balloon into the skies, and the music in the background is just such. And Andrew Screech deserves a lot of credit for this. It's just, to me, it's a highlight of their career. It's just such divine, lush, orchestral music, and it puts you into the trance. And I love the line about when this, I think there's a line, go back from hence you came, the swallows cried, you've corrupted and befouled the ground you've walked upon, and now you've come to poison the skies. Like, and he's singing it, and there's where he's singing it and he's speaking it. It's just, I don't even know how to describe it. There's no way I've done it justice. It's, to me, Count Grassie's Passage Over Piedmont is a highlight. And then Snowball and Negative, another song I think a little bit inspired by the breakup he was having with Orla Little. And just a beautiful piano melody. Very, what's that word when you're melancholic, but when you're reflective, very reflective, and smoking my 600 last cigarette, like, it deals with issues of time passing and mortality, and it's just a pretty deep song, I guess, is what I can say. And I think there are 3 highlights. I know I've been doing too much talk, and I hope
it's perfect.
It hasn't been boring you, but I'm trying to, because there's probably a lot of people, well, if anyone watches this that doesn't know Divine Comedy, I'm trying to sell them to you as best you can. You need to check out this band.
Be getting should be getting paid by.
Oh no, Neil is paying me.
Yeah, okay.
No, I don't Neil. Don't know Neil.
Okay, right. That's number 7. Now we're going to take a break.
We're going to take a break. Perfect.